I stared at the smashed remains of the life I thought couldn't be broken, only to discover every promise had been built on sand. My name is Mark Turner, and I'm 34 years old. Each morning I wake at 5, make coffee in the silence of a house that once held laughter, and plan my next careful move. Emily Turner, my wife of 8 years, betrayed not just our vows, but the foundation we'd built together. Jason Cole, the contractor who fixed our fence while breaking everything else, thought he could take what wasn't his without consequence. My hands trembled as I examined bank statements that proved her deception went deeper than the affair. I won't become their victim. I'll ensure justice finds them both, not through rage, but through the precise application of truth. But let me start from the beginning. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. I finished the Matthews water heater install in record time. Most Fridays, a job like that would have me working until 7, but something went right for once. No corroded pipes, no unexpected leaks, just straightforward work that flowed from my hands like I'd done it 1,000 times before. Which I had. "You're a lifesaver, Mark," Mrs. Matthews said, handing me a check. "Our daughter's visiting this weekend with the grandkids. I was dreading cold showers for everyone." "Just doing my job, ma'am." I tucked the payment into my workshirt pocket. "Give the system about 30 minutes before running hot water." The clock on my truck dashboard read 5:13 p.m. as I pulled away from the Matthews place. 2 hours earlier than expected. I could swing by the hardware store, pick up supplies for tomorrow's jobs, or I could surprise Emily with an early dinner. Maybe even take her to that Italian place she'd been hinting about. Arlington Heights looked particularly peaceful that evening. Manicured lawns catching the last warm light of day. Sprinklers making rainbows over driveways. Our neighborhood wasn't fancy, but it was ours. We'd saved 3 years for the down payment, argued over paint colors for another 2 months, then spent every weekend for a summer fixing what the previous owners had neglected. I remember the day we installed that hot tub in the backyard. Emily had laughed when I accidentally sprayed myself with the hose while setting up the plumbing. "My sexy handyman," she'd called me, kissing my wet cheek. I pulled into our driveway at 5:26 p.m., noticing Emily's car parked where it always was. No sign she'd gone out. Perfect. I'd catch her before she started dinner. Maybe suggest we go out, celebrate the early finish and the extra money from the Matthews job. That's when I heard it. Music drifting from the backyard. Something with a steady beat, not too loud, but clear enough. Emily must be enjoying the evening air. Probably sitting on the patio with a magazine, like she did most Fridays. I smiled, imagining her surprise when I walked through the gate instead of coming through the front door. I didn't bother going inside first. Instead, I walked around the side of the house, past the recycling bins and the stack of lumber left over from the fence project. The music grew louder, some pop song I didn't recognize. As I approached the backyard, steam billowed over the fence, clouding the evening air. She'd turned on the hot tub. My surprise was ruined. She was probably already relaxing, maybe even dozing with her head back against the cushioned edge. I pushed open the gate, ready to call out so I wouldn't startle her. The words died in my throat. Through the fog of steam rising from the churning water, I saw them. Emily, her blonde hair piled messily on top of her head, face flushed, and Jason Cole, our neighbor's contractor, his muscled arms stretched along the edge of the tub behind my wife's bare shoulders. Wine glasses sat on the concrete lip of the tub, an open bottle between them. Emily's laugh cut through the music, that full-throated sound I thought was reserved for me. Jason leaned closer, whispering something that made her eyes crinkle at the corners. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My body felt disconnected, like I was watching a scene in someone else's life. Then Emily turned her head slightly and saw me standing there. Her smile vanished. "Mark!" Her voice cracked with surprise as she jerked away from Jason, water sloshing over the edge of the tub. You're home early." Jason straightened, his face shifting from relaxed to tense in an instant. "Hey man," he said, like we were just neighbors chatting over the fence. I found my voice somehow. It came out unnaturally calm. "What's this?" Emily was scrambling now, reaching for a towel draped over a nearby chair. "It's not what it looks like," she blurted, the oldest lie in history. Jason nodded. "We were just having a drink. I finished the fence panel early, and Emily offered, just a drink." I pointed to their hands, still intertwined beneath the bubbling water. "Then explain that." Silence stretched between us. Emily's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. Jason finally broke eye contact, looking down at the churning water. I turned away, my shoes scraping against the patio stones. "Mark, wait," Emily called after me. "Please, let me explain." I kept walking, pushed through the kitchen door, my eyes cold and focused on nothing. "You'll regret this," I whispered. I woke up with the stiffness that comes from a night spent on a couch never meant for sleeping. For a moment, just one blessed moment, I didn't remember why I was there instead of in our bed. Then it all rushed back. Emily's flushed face in the hot tub steam, Jason's arm draped behind her, their fingers laced together beneath the bubbling water. Sunlight streamed through the living room blinds, painting stripes across the coffee table where I'd left my phone and wallet. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Usually Saturday mornings meant Emily's music playing from the kitchen, the smell of coffee, maybe bacon if we weren't watching our cholesterol that month. My watch read 7:42 a.m. I'd barely slept, spending most of the night staring at the ceiling, reconstructing every suspicious late night, every work dinner that had run long. The signs had been there. I just hadn't wanted to see them. I sat up, rubbing my face with both hands. My mouth tasted sour, and my back ached from the awkward angle of the couch cushions. The throw blanket Emily had draped over me sometime after midnight, I'd pretended to be asleep when I heard her creep downstairs, had slipped to the floor. Ever remember how your grandparents' couch felt when you were a kid? That scratchy fabric that left patterns on your skin if you napped on it? Our couch was nothing like that, all smooth microfiber and memory foam, but last night it might as well have been made of concrete and sandpaper. Floorboards creaked overhead. Emily was awake, moving around in the guest room where she'd retreated after I refused to speak to her last night. I listened to the soft padding of her footsteps, the subtle opening and closing of the bathroom door. Each sound made my jaw tighten a little more. I pushed myself up and headed to the kitchen. Might as well face whatever came next with caffeine in my system. I was halfway through brewing coffee when Emily appeared in the doorway. She wore an oversized t-shirt and pajama pants, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her eyes were puffy and red-rimmed. "Mark," she said, her voice morning rough. "Can we talk?" I didn't answer, just reached for a second mug from the cabinet. She took this as permission, sliding onto one of the bar stools at our kitchen island. "I didn't sleep at all," she offered, as if her insomnia somehow balanced the scales. The coffee maker gurgled its last drops. I poured 2 cups, sliding one toward her without making eye contact. "Thank you," she whispered, wrapping both hands around the mug. I leaned against the counter, keeping the island between us. "Say what you need to say." Emily took a shaky breath. "What happened yesterday? It was a mistake. A terrible, awful mistake." Her voice cracked. "I've been feeling so lonely lately. You're always working and I just—" "Stop." The word came out flat, not angry, just tired. "Don't blame me for this." "I'm not." She pushed her mug away, leaning forward. "I'm trying to explain, not excuse. I was weak and stupid and I made a terrible mistake." It didn't mean anything. I sipped my coffee, letting the bitterness coat my tongue. "How long?" She blinked, confusion crossing her face. "What? How long have you been seeing Jason?" Her shoulders sagged. 3 months, she admitted. "Since he started the fence repairs. 3 months. 12 weeks of lies." I did the math in my head. That covered at least 8 client dinners and 3 weekend seminars she'd supposedly attended for her freelance business. "Does his wife know?" I asked. Emily shook her head. "No, at least I don't think so." I walked to the window overlooking our backyard. The hot tub sat there, covered now, steam no longer rising from its surface. The patio furniture was arranged just as it had been yesterday. Wine glasses cleared away, but nothing else changed. It looked so ordinary, so unchanged, when everything it represented had been destroyed. "Mark, please." Emily's voice came from right behind me now. I hadn't heard her move. "Don't tell anyone, not yet. I want us to work this out." I turned to face her. Her eyes were desperate, pleading. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. "I need time," I said, stepping around her. "I'll think about it." She reached for my arm but stopped short of actually touching me. "Where are you going?" "Out. I need air." I showered quickly and dressed in the first clean clothes I found. 20 minutes later, I sat in my truck in the empty supermarket parking lot, my laptop open on the passenger seat. I pulled up Facebook and typed in Jason Cole's name. His profile was mostly public, typical contractor showing off his projects, his weekend fishing trips, his supposedly happy family life. I scrolled back through the timeline, stopping at each date that matched Emily's work dinners. There it was, every single time. Check-ins at restaurants, always with location tags turned off, but recognizable from the decor. In one photo, I could even see Emily's purse on a chair in the background, though she wasn't in the frame. I created a new folder on my desktop and named it Evidence. One by one, I saved the screenshots, downloading each photo, each timestamp. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Please come home so we can talk. I love you." I didn't reply. Instead, I started the truck. I had research to do. 2 days crawled by like glass under my skin. I moved through our house like a ghost, sleeping on the couch, eating meals in silence while Emily tried desperately to act like nothing had happened. Tuesday evening, I walked in from work to find her humming in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for a stir-fry. The smell of ginger and soy sauce filled the air. It was surreal, watching her perform this pantomime of normal married life while the wreckage of our relationship lay all around us. "I thought we could eat together tonight," she said, her voice forcibly bright. "Like we used to on Tuesdays, remember?" I remembered. Tuesday night dinners had been our tradition since we'd first married, back when I believed her smiles. "Sure," I said, setting my tools by the door. "I'll grab a shower first." Her face lit up at my agreement. It was almost too easy. In the bathroom, I locked the door and pulled out my phone. I'd been methodically gathering information, piece by piece. Last night, I'd gone through our old credit card statements. Today, I was focusing on our joint checking account. The banking app showed consistent cash withdrawals. $200 here, $300 there, always on Fridays, always from the ATM near her yoga studio. Over the past 3 months, she'd pulled out nearly $4,000 in cash. $4,000. For what? We'd always discussed large purchases. Even during Christmas shopping, we'd agreed on budgets. This was different. I put my phone away and stepped into the shower, letting hot water pound against my back while I thought. $4,000 in cash meant she didn't want to leave a paper trail, which meant she knew exactly what she was doing. Dinner was a performance. Emily chatted about neighborhood gossip, a new client she was pitching, anything but the affair. I nodded at the right moments, asked appropriate questions, and watched her shoulders gradually relax as she convinced herself we might survive this. "I'm going to yoga at 7, she mentioned casually over dessert. The chocolate cake she knew was my favorite. "Unless you'd rather I stay home?" "No, go ahead," I said, taking another bite. "Exercise is good for stress." Her smile wavered for just a second. "Thanks for understanding." At 6:45, Emily kissed my cheek and left. Yoga mat under her arm, gym bag slung over her shoulder. I waited 5 minutes, then grabbed my keys. I kept a safe distance as I followed her Honda through familiar streets. But instead of turning toward the yoga studio, she headed downtown, pulling into the lot behind Hotel Madison, a mid-range business hotel near the convention center. I parked across the street, in a spot with a clear view of the main entrance. My hands were steady as I reached for the camera I'd brought. Not my phone, which could be tracked, but my old digital camera with the zoom lens. Through the lens, I watched Emily stride through the glass doors, yoga mat nowhere in sight. She scanned the lobby, then smiled. Jason Cole stood from one of the lobby chairs. He wore dark jeans and a button-down shirt, dressed up for a supposed workday. He kissed Emily's cheek, his hand lingering on her lower back as they walked to the elevator. I took photos of everything, their arrival times, the greeting, the elevator. The timestamp function captured each precise moment. I didn't feel rage anymore, just a cold, clarifying certainty. This wasn't a mistake or a momentary lapse. This was deliberate deception. 2 hours later, they emerged separately. Jason first, then Emily 15 minutes after. I photographed it all. By the time I arrived home, I'd beaten her there by 10 minutes. I was on the couch with a book when she walked in, still carrying that unused yoga mat. "Good class?" I asked. "Great," she said, brushing hair from her flushed face. "Really intense. I feel so much better." She set her bag down and came to sit beside me on the couch, closer than she had in days. "Mark," she said, her voice soft, "I've been thinking. What if we just start fresh? Put this whole thing behind us?" I looked into her eyes, searching for any flicker of guilt about the lie she'd just told. There was none. "Yes," I said, matching her tone. "I think that's exactly what we need." Relief washed over her face. She leaned forward to hug me, and I let her, my arms coming around her back mechanically. "I'm so glad," she whispered against my neck. "I love you, Mark." "Get some sleep," I told her, kissing her cheek. "You must be tired after yoga." She squeezed my hand before heading upstairs, her steps lighter than they'd been in days. When I heard the bedroom door close, I whispered to the empty room, "You just signed your own sentence." In the office, I connected my camera to the computer. I copied each image, organizing them in folders by date and time. I added them to my growing collection, screenshots, bank statements, receipts, and transferred everything to a USB drive. I labeled it Phase 1 and locked it in my toolbox. 3 days passed in a strange dance of pretending. Emily acted like we were healing, and I acted like I believed her. We shared meals, watched TV together, and kept conversations light. Anyone watching would have thought we were just a normal couple working through a rough patch. But under the surface, I was building my case. Daniel Wright's law office sat in a converted Victorian house downtown. The place had polished hardwood floors and tasteful artwork, professional without being intimidating. I'd known Daniel since I was a kid. He'd handled my parents' will, helped me set up my contracting business. He was the only lawyer I trusted. When his secretary showed me in, Daniel rose from behind his desk with a genuine smile that faded as he read my expression. "Mark," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "It's been a while. Thanks for seeing me on short notice." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Of course. What's going on?" I unzipped my laptop bag and placed a manila folder on his desk. "Emily's been cheating." Daniel's expression didn't change. He'd probably heard similar statements 1,000 times in this room. "I'm sorry to hear that. I need to know my options." He opened the folder and methodically reviewed the contents, the time-stamped photos from the hotel, bank statements, screenshots of text messages I'd found when Emily left her phone unlocked. "How long have you known?" he asked, studying a particularly damning photo of Emily and Jason entering the hotel. "About a week, but it's been going on for months." Daniel leaned back in his chair. I remembered when my dad and I had helped him move into this office 15 years ago. The desk had seemed enormous then. Now it just looked like a piece of furniture where bad news was delivered daily. "You've been thorough," he said, tapping the edge of a bank statement. "Most people come in here with suspicions. You've brought evidence." "I need to know where I stand legally." Daniel folded his hands. "Illinois is a no-fault divorce state, but adultery can impact financial settlements, especially regarding alimony. From what you've shown me, Emily's conduct could significantly weaken any claim she might make for spousal support. So I should file now?" "Not yet." Daniel shook his head. "I'd recommend gathering more evidence, particularly financial. If she spent marital assets on this affair, that's dissipation. The court takes that very seriously." I nodded, remembering the yoga class that wasn't a yoga class. "She's still seeing him." "Still lying about it?" "I know this is difficult," Daniel said, his voice steady. "But legally speaking, the more rope you give her, the stronger your position becomes." "So, I keep pretending everything's fine while I build the case?" "Exactly. Can you manage that? Because if you confront her now, she'll start covering her tracks." I thought about it. About the anger that still burned cold in my chest. About the betrayal that replayed in my mind every night as I tried to sleep. "I can handle it," I promised. "I'm not blowing this by losing my composure." Daniel gathered the documents and returned them to the folder. "Good. Monitor your accounts closely. Look for unusual transactions, cash withdrawals, credit card charges at hotels or restaurants." "I will." "And Mark?" Daniel's expression softened slightly. "Take care of yourself through this. These cases get ugly." I almost smiled at that, as if it wasn't already ugly. That afternoon, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, reviewing our household accounts more thoroughly than I ever had before. Emily handled most of the bills, something I'd trusted her with completely. Now that trust was a liability. After an hour of digging, I found it. 6 separate payments from our joint account to Cole Contracting over the past 4 months. Each labeled as design consulting for $750. Design consulting, from a guy who could barely match his own socks. I saved screenshots, downloaded statements, and forwarded them to my personal email account. The evidence was mounting, piece by damning piece. When Emily came home that evening, she kissed my cheek and set her purse on the counter. "I forgot to mention," she said casually. "I have that marketing retreat this weekend." "The one up at Lake Geneva? I'll be leaving tomorrow afternoon." I'd heard nothing about any retreat, but I nodded as if this was old news. "Right. The team building thing?" "Exactly." Relief flashed across her face. "It's mandatory. I'll be back Sunday evening." "No problem," I said. "I've got some jobs lined up anyway." The next day, I waited until Emily had been gone 3 hours before I got in my truck. The address for the retreat had been easy to find. She'd left the confirmation email open on her laptop. The cabin was 2 hours north, tucked into a wooded area near the lake. I parked half a mile down the road and walked the rest of the way, keeping to the trees. When the cabin came into view, I saw exactly what I expected. Emily's Honda parked beside Jason's black pickup. I took photos from several angles, capturing the vehicles, the cabin, and through one window, the unmistakable silhouettes of two people embracing. That night, I attached all the new evidence to an email addressed to Daniel Wright. The subject line read simply, "Everything you need." 2 nights later, I watched Emily primp in the bathroom mirror, adding an extra coat of mascara. She'd been walking on eggshells around me since the hot tub night, but tonight her movements had a lightness to them. Hope. She thought we were turning a corner. "Reservations are at 7, I called out, adjusting my tie in the hallway mirror. I'd chosen a blue one she'd given me last Christmas. A nice touch, I thought. "Almost ready." Her voice carried that sing-song quality I hadn't heard in months. We drove to Marcello's in comfortable silence. It was our place, where we'd celebrated anniversaries, birthdays, promotions. The maitre d' knew us by name, greeting us with the practiced warmth of someone who'd witnessed our happier days. "Your usual table, Mr. and Mrs. Turner?" "That would be perfect, Anthony. Thank you." Our table sat in a quiet corner, candles flickering between us. Emily ordered her favorite Pinot Noir, smiling as she reached for my hand across the tablecloth. "I'm glad we're doing this, Mark. I've been hoping we could, start talking about moving forward." I nodded, squeezing her hand gently before letting go. "That's exactly why I wanted to have dinner. To talk about our future." Relief washed over her face, softening the worry lines that had formed around her eyes. "I've been so scared you wouldn't forgive me. That one mistake would erase everything we've built. One mistake. As if 8 years of marriage could be reduced to a single moment of weakness." "I've been doing a lot of thinking," I said, reaching for the briefcase I'd set beside my chair. "About trust, about honesty." Her smile faltered slightly. "Mark?" "Let me finish, Emily." I kept my voice level, polite even. Our waiter approached, but I waved him off with a quick gesture. "I want to be completely transparent about where we stand." I unlatched the briefcase and removed a plain manila folder. The restaurant's soft lighting caught the crisp edges as I placed it on the table between us. "What's this?" she asked, her fingers hovering hesitantly. "The truth." I opened the folder and began laying down the contents one by one. First, the photographs of her and Jason at the Lake Geneva cabin. Then the bank statements showing the design consulting payments. Finally, the printed screenshots of text messages I'd recovered from our shared cloud account. Emily's face drained of color so quickly I thought she might faint. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. 3 months, Emily. Not one mistake. 3 months of calculated deception. Her hand trembled as she reached for her wine glass. "Mark, I can explain." "April 18th, I continued, tapping one of the hotel receipts. "You said you were at your mother's. May 3rd, girls' night out. May 27th, marketing conference in Milwaukee." Each date landed between us like stones dropping into still water, the ripples of her lies expanding outward, touching everything. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered, tears welling up. "Things between us were so routine. Jason made me feel—" "Spare me," I cut her off, not harshly, but with finality. "I don't need to hear how special he made you feel while spending our money." Around us, other diners continued their meals, oblivious to the dissolution happening at our quiet corner table. The candle between us flickered, casting dancing shadows across the evidence of her betrayal. "What do you want from me?" Emily asked, mascara running now. "To beg? To grovel right here in Marcello's?" I shook my head, folding my napkin and setting it beside my untouched plate. "I want you to answer one question." She waited, shoulders hunched. "Was he worth everything you're about to lose?" Emily stared at me, searching my face for some crack in my resolve, some opening for manipulation. Finding none, she grabbed her purse and stood abruptly, knocking over her wine glass. Red liquid soaked into the white tablecloth like blood. "You self-righteous bastard," she hissed, loud enough that nearby diners turned to stare. "You planned this whole thing just to humiliate me." I remained seated, expression unchanged. "No, Emily, you did this. I'm just showing you the receipts." She stormed out, heels clicking aggressively across the hardwood floor. Every eye in the restaurant followed her exit before turning curiously to me. With deliberate calm, I gathered each document, folding them neatly back into the folder. The waiter approached cautiously. "Everything all right, sir?" "Just the check, please." Outside, the night air had a crisp bite to it. I stood in the parking lot, watching Emily's taillights disappear down the street. I pulled out my phone and dialed. "Daniel, it's Mark. File it tomorrow morning." 2 days after the restaurant confrontation, I was fixing a loose kitchen cabinet when my phone buzzed with a text from our neighbor, Tom. "Is everything okay with you and Emily? Call me when you can." I hadn't even put the screwdriver down before 3 more notifications lit up my screen. All from mutual friends, all with the same concerned tone. The court filing had hit the public record this morning, just as Daniel said it would. I didn't need to return the calls to know what was happening. The document cited adultery and financial fraud in black and white, with Emily's name clearly displayed. No hiding now. No more pretending. I was tightening the last screw when I heard tires screech in the driveway. The front door slammed open with such force that the family photo by the entryway crashed to the floor, glass shattering across the hardwood. "What the hell did you do?" Emily's voice was shrill, her carefully applied makeup already streaking from tears. She stormed into the kitchen, waving her phone in my face. "Karen just called me. And Michael. And Sarah. They all know." I calmly set the screwdriver on the counter. "Of course they know. It's public record." "You're trying to humiliate me." She was trembling, mascara running down her cheeks in dark rivulets. "You could have filed without listing everything like that." "I'm not humiliating you, Emily," I said, keeping my voice even. "I'm correcting the record." She laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that echoed against the kitchen tiles. "You think you're so clever. You think you've won." I moved past her to pick up the broken frame from the entryway floor. The photograph inside showed us at Lake Michigan 3 summers ago, both smiling. I remembered that day, the wind in her hair, her laugh as waves crashed around our legs. Had she been thinking about leaving even then? "This isn't about winning," I said, carefully extracting the photo from the broken glass. "Well, you won't." Emily's voice hardened as she followed me. "I'll take half of everything. The house, your savings, everything we built. And when I'm done, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are." I couldn't help but smirk at that. "You can't take what you don't own." Her expression faltered. "What are you talking about?" "I'm entitled to half." "Not when you've committed marital fraud." I set the photograph on the side table. "Not when you've been siphoning money to fund your affair. Not in this state, Emily." She started to respond when her phone rang again. She glanced at it, declined the call, then immediately it rang once more. The dominoes were falling faster than she could prop them back up. "This will blow over," she insisted, more to herself than to me. "People forget. They move on." "Maybe," I conceded. "But Jason's clients might not be so forgiving." Her head snapped up. "What?" "Word travels fast in small business circles." I shrugged. "Especially when a contractor is sleeping with clients' wives." The color drained from her face. "You didn't." "I didn't have to. The filing is public, Emily. Anyone can read it." Before she could respond, the doorbell rang. An aggressive, repeated pressing that made the chimes overlap. Through the sidelight window, I could see Jason's truck parked behind Emily's car. "Perfect timing," I murmured, reaching into my pocket to tap the voice recorder app on my phone. When I opened the door, Jason stood there looking like he hadn't slept, his normally confident posture replaced by agitated energy. "You need to fix this," he demanded, not bothering with preliminaries. "I've had 3 calls today. 3 clients asking if I'm the Jason Cole named in your divorce filing." I leaned against the doorframe. "And what did you tell them?" "That it's bullshit." His face reddened. "That you're making things up because you can't handle your marriage falling apart." I smiled slightly. "Tell me exactly what you two did." Emily appeared behind me. "Jason, don't what?" He was too worked up to notice my calm demeanor. "Don't tell him how you came on to me? How you said your marriage was already over? How you—" He stopped suddenly, eyes narrowing as he finally registered my relaxed stance and the phone partially visible in my hand. "Are you recording this?" His voice dropped dangerously. "I record all potential legal threats on my property," I replied evenly. "Please continue." "You were saying Emily told you our marriage was already over?" Jason's bluster evaporated as comprehension dawned. His gaze darted between Emily and me. "You set me up," he muttered. "You fucking set me up." "No, Jason," I said, beginning to close the door. "You did that all by yourself." "This isn't over," he shouted as the gap narrowed. "I'll sue you for defamation. The door clicked shut, muffling his continuing threats. I turned to find Emily staring at me, her expression a mixture of horror and grudging respect. "That's the sound of a man losing everything," I said quietly, pocketing my phone. The next morning arrived with sharp sunlight cutting through blinds I hadn't bothered to close. I'd slept maybe 3 hours, my mind cycling through scenarios and contingency plans. I shuffled into the kitchen, started the coffee maker, and tried to ignore the crushing silence of the house. Emily hadn't come home after yesterday's confrontation with Jason, not that I expected her to. I was halfway through my first cup when the doorbell rang. A courier handed me an envelope, nodded politely, and disappeared down the walkway. The legal letterhead made my stomach tighten. Inside was a formal notice. Emily had filed a claim accusing me of harassment, intimidation, and malicious interference with business relationships. My phone rang almost immediately. "Daniel." "I see the papers arrived," he said when I answered. No preamble needed. "Just now." I flipped through the pages, scanning the allegations. She's claiming I'm stalking her? That I've created a hostile living environment? "It's a desperation move," Daniel assured me, his voice steady in that lawyer way that had calmed countless clients before me. "Emily knows the divorce isn't going her way. This is her attempt to make you look unstable and force a more favorable settlement." I leaned against the counter, suddenly feeling the weight of exhaustion pressing down. "She says I'm deliberately trying to destroy Jason's business." "You published nothing. You distributed nothing. The court filing is public record. That's how the system works." I heard papers shuffling on his end. "Mark, listen to me. This is exactly what happens when someone realizes they've lost. They lash out, throw everything at the wall, and hope something sticks." "What do we do?" I asked, rubbing my temple where a headache was forming. "Nothing changes. We respond formally. We stay the course. We remain calm." There was a pause. "You're still calm, right?" I thought about the rage that occasionally surged when I least expected it. Washing dishes, driving to work, trying to sleep. The sudden, violent images of confrontation that flashed unbidden, but I hadn't acted on any of them. "I'm composed," I answered truthfully. "Tired, but composed." "Good. Keep it that way. We're meeting tomorrow at 10 to draft our response. In the meantime, don't contact Emily or Jason. Document any attempts they make to contact you." After hanging up, I spent the day going through motions. I called clients, scheduled jobs, ate something I couldn't remember preparing. By evening, I was back at my laptop, organizing the digital trail of Emily's betrayal into neatly labeled folders. At 9:17 p.m., a new email arrived from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "About Jason Cole. Information you need." I hesitated, cursor hovering over the message. Spam? Virus? But curiosity won. I clicked. "Mr. Turner, you don't know me, but I'm Laura Jenkins. I dated Jason Cole for 3 years before discovering he was cheating on me with multiple women. I'm contacting you because I've been following your situation through mutual connections. Jason isn't just sleeping with your wife. Attached are screenshots from his conversations with me and at least one other woman during the same period he was seeing Emily. He's been playing all of you. Especially telling are his messages about Emily. I thought you deserved to know what kind of people you're dealing with. I don't want any involvement beyond this. I just believe in karma. Laura." I downloaded the attachments with trembling fingers. The first file contained dozens of screenshots, timestamps matching the exact period of Emily's affair. Messages between Jason and Laura, Jason and someone named Tiffany. Explicit photos, date plans, morning after debriefs. The second file contained conversations where Jason had mocked Emily. Called her needy, desperate. Said she was easy to manipulate because she thought she was trading up from her marriage. Bragged about juggling all 3 women without any of them knowing. I sank back in my chair, a strange lightness spreading through me. The final screenshot was a text from Jason to Laura 3 weeks ago. Emily thinks she's special. She's talking about us having a future together once she leaves her husband. Hilarious. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. Not just a smirk or a bitter twist of lips, but a genuine smile of relief. I started the printer, listening to the mechanical hum as it produced physical copies of each damning message. I arranged them in sequence, clipped them together, and set them aside for tomorrow's meeting with Daniel. Then I drafted a simple email to Laura, thanking her for her honesty. As I hit send, I whispered to the empty room, "She wanted to play victim. Now I'll show everyone who she really was." A week passed like a fever dream, days blending together in a haze of preparation, phone calls with Daniel, and restless nights. The morning of the court date, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, adjusting my tie with shaky hands. 8 years of marriage would be dissected and dismantled in a matter of hours. I remembered our wedding day. Emily in white, promising forever while I believed every word. The memory felt like it belonged to someone else now. The courthouse loomed gray against the October sky, its stone columns and broad steps crawling with people carrying briefcases and worried expressions. Daniel met me at the entrance, his calm demeanor steadying my nerves. "Ready?" he asked, clutching a thick portfolio of documents. "As I'll ever be," I replied, following him through security. The courtroom smelled of wood polish and anxiety. I spotted Emily immediately, seated beside her attorney, a sharp-featured woman in an expensive suit. Emily had done her makeup carefully, her hair pulled back in a modest style I recognized from when she'd wanted to appear serious about something. The victim look. My stomach clenched. When our eyes met, she quickly looked away, whispering something to her lawyer. "Remember," Daniel murmured as we took our seats, "let the evidence speak for itself. No matter what is said, remain composed." Judge Wright entered, a stern-faced woman in her 60s who wasted no time on pleasantries. The proceedings began with opening statements, Emily's lawyer painting a picture of a neglected wife who'd made a regrettable mistake but deserved fair treatment in the dissolution. Daniel's response was measured, promising to demonstrate a pattern of deliberate deception that voided standard considerations. Then came the evidence. Daniel methodically presented bank records showing Emily's systematic withdrawal of funds coinciding with dates she met Jason. Credit card statements revealed hotel charges, restaurant bills for two when I was working late, and clothing purchases that never made it home. Emily's face grew increasingly pale as Daniel overlaid these documents with her text messages to Jason, the ones where she'd complained about being trapped in our marriage while simultaneously using our joint accounts to fund their affair. "Your Honor," Daniel said, his voice carrying through the hushed courtroom, "this is not a case of a marriage naturally dissolving. This is a case of calculated betrayal with financial consequences." Emily's lawyer objected repeatedly, but the documents spoke for themselves. When it came time for Emily to testify, she stumbled through explanations that contradicted her earlier statements. The judge's expression grew increasingly skeptical. Then came the masterstroke. Daniel introduced Laura Jenkins's evidence as supporting documentation. "Your Honor, these messages demonstrate that not only was Mrs. Turner engaged in an adulterous relationship, but Mr. Cole was simultaneously maintaining multiple relationships, including one with Mrs. Turner, while fraudulently billing for services through his contracting company." The courtroom buzz grew louder as Jason's texts mocking Emily were read aloud. I watched Emily's face crumple, her eyes darting to the back of the courtroom where Jason sat, his expression frozen in shock. In that moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The judge called a brief recess. When court resumed, her ruling was decisive. Based on the evidence presented, the court finds clear evidence of adultery and financial misconduct. Mrs. Turner's request for alimony is denied. Furthermore, she is ordered to repay the sum of $12,468 in misappropriated funds from joint accounts. The judge turned to address the issue of Jason's billing practices. The court will forward documentation regarding Mr. Cole's questionable business practices to the state licensing board for further investigation. His contracting license is suspended pending that review. Just like that, it was over. Years of marriage dissolved in a 3-hour hearing. Outside the courthouse, rain threatened but hadn't yet fallen. I stood on the steps, breathing deeply, when I heard her voice. "Mark." I turned to find Emily, mascara smudged beneath red-rimmed eyes. "Are you happy now?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Is this what you wanted?" I looked at her, really looked at the woman I'd once built my life around, and felt nothing but emptiness where the anger had been. "No," I said quietly, "but I'm finally free." Her face contorted. "You'll regret this," she spat, but her voice cracked on the last word. The threat fell hollow between us. I watched her storm toward her car, the blue sedan I'd helped her pick out 3 years ago. The engine coughed smoke as she pulled away, wheels splashing through puddles forming in the parking lot. Above, clouds finally broke, rain beginning to fall in a gentle patter that quickly intensified. Standing in the growing downpour, I watched until her taillights disappeared around the corner, just another flash of red vanishing into the gray afternoon. 3 months later, I stood in my backyard, surveying what I'd rebuilt. The hot tub, once the scene of my life's greatest betrayal, sat drained and spotless. I'd scrubbed every inch of it, replacing filters and parts until nothing remained of that night. The fence Jason had half repaired now stood properly finished, each plank sanded and sealed by my own hands. The deck boards that had creaked under their weight were gone too, replaced with fresh cedar that wouldn't hold their memory. Spring had come early this year. Yellow daffodils pushed through the soil at the garden's edge, flowers Emily had planted our first summer here. I hadn't torn them out. Some things deserved to survive, even if the hands that placed them didn't deserve remembering. The sound of a car door closing pulled me from my thoughts. Daniel walked through the side gate, manila folder tucked under his arm. He looked different in jeans and a polo shirt instead of his courtroom suits. "Place looks good," he said, glancing around the yard. "You've been busy." I nodded. "Keeps my hands occupied, my mind clear." Daniel held out the folder. "Last of the paperwork. All financial obligations are officially closed. The house is solely in your name, and the restraining order has been filed with no contestation." I took the folder, feeling its surprising weight. Amazing how the end of a marriage could be reduced to 20 pages of legal documentation. "Emily?" I asked, though I wasn't sure why I needed to know. Daniel shrugged. "Renting a one-bedroom across town, working reception at that dental office on Maple." I nodded. The woman who'd once complained about our 3-bedroom house being too cramped was now living in a space a quarter of the size. "And Jason?" "Left the state. Too many clients canceled after his license suspension. Word travels fast in contractor circles." Daniel hesitated. "His wife took the kids to her parents in Minnesota." I felt a twinge of something, not guilt exactly. Maybe just awareness that ripples spread far beyond the initial stone. "Want a beer?" I offered. Daniel checked his watch. "Rain check. Taking my daughter to soccer practice." After he left, I sat on the edge of the deck, folder in hand, staring at the hollow basin of the hot tub. Empty now. Clean. I'd considered filling it, using it again, but something always stopped me. Maybe someday. Strange how quiet the yard felt these days. No forced laughter, no pretense. Just birds and occasional neighborhood sounds filtering through the fence. I'd learned to appreciate silence in a way I never had before. Inside the house, the phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. Another realtor, probably, asking if I was interested in selling now that I was single again. They'd been circling since the divorce finalized, sensing opportunity in someone else's collapse. The late afternoon sun felt good on my face. Warm, uncomplicated. I thought about Emily and her apartment, trying to rebuild from nothing. I'd heard through mutual friends that she'd reached out to some of our old circle, only to find doors politely but firmly closed. Betrayal has a way of reshuffling loyalties. What surprised me most these days wasn't that I'd survived, but what exactly I missed. Not Emily, not the woman who'd shared my bed for 8 years. I missed who I thought she was. I missed the illusion, the person I'd invested in who never actually existed. You know the strangest part about betrayal? It doesn't end with dramatic confrontations or courtroom victories. It ends with silence, with empty spaces that gradually fill with something else. Something that feels a lot like justice. I ran my hand along the smooth edge of the hot tub. In a few weeks, I might fill it again. Or I might have it removed altogether. The choice was entirely mine now. The folder sat heavy in my lap. Final resolution, sealed with signatures and stamps. Emily had lost it all. The house, the savings, the friends, the reputation she'd guarded so carefully. And me. She'd lost me. I took a deep breath of the spring air, feeling lighter than I had in months. She lost everything she thought she owned, I said softly to the empty tub, including me. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.